Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yeah.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Here. 6
present, 1 absent.
The first order of business is a spotlight on excellence for the IDEA camp.
Sites.
Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask our science coordinator, Marty, to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. This is always one of the most exciting things for me to talk about because it's one of our more fun activities that we have for our students. So this year, just to give you a little preview, we have one of our students that gives you a little insight of his experience. So this year we had over 226 students that participated in our programs from entering grade 5 to grade 9. As you can see, there's a small gap between the male and female. We have 48% female, and the average of females in STEM fields are only at 24%, so we're almost double that. And we want to keep that momentum going. So we have a variety of different workshops, and I think most of you are familiar with some of them. Sea Perch is one of our underwater robotics. The kids build it from PVC pipe and foam, and we take them to the river, and they run them through the water and kind of get an idea of what buoyancy is. Flight school, from hot air balloons to rockets, all sorts of activities that get them working and figuring out what's to scale, measuring, all the skills that we're trying to get them to participate in, but in a fun and engaging way. Crime science, you can see them all here in their lab coats checking out a crime scene. A lot of observations, inference, everything's based on evidence and they have to prove it. This year we had 33% of our students were from 5th grade, which we did a lot more recruiting at the elementary level with one of our UMass college students so that we could really start the pipeline to really get the kids in there. Excuse me. Our attendees, there's a different home languages spoken by many of our students, so the diversity really reflects what we have in our city. And by bringing those students here, we get a lot of different variety on ideas. Carnival contraptions, again, wiring, soldering, all those skills that kids really don't always get to have their opportunity to do so. We see a young lady here with a saw and a clamp, and there's nothing better than to see those girls out there digging in and getting used to doing tools that many of us don't get to use anymore. We don't tinker in our basements. One of our new ones this year was 3D design. One of our newer employees, Craig Kaminsky, developed this workshop. They use 3D printers. They use a paper laser cutter where they did some CAD design on a computer and then brought them to life with their creations. There's a little camera at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that was done with the plastic of the 3D printer. We continued this year with our all-girls U-Code girl, again, to kind of encourage those girls to see what web design looks like, coding looks like, and to see where they fit into this and how they can bring that to something of interest of themselves. Those are a list of all our different workshops. We had 11 different workshops this year. Got Dirt, another one that's an environmental focus. We took the kids out to the urban farm on Pawtucket Boulevard. They learned about the science of food, but also they made pickles and cheese and learned all about how things are connected to their health. Architect Studio, a very math-focused program that kids don't even realize. This young man wanted a full court basketball in his dream home, so it requires them to do a little research and then do everything to scale so it fits into what would be his dream house, I think in Malibu is what he told me. So the exciting piece of this is also that, this year, 3 of the 11 workshops were taught by former interns. So we hired 6 interns this year from UMass Lowell, and you know, this is where we're getting our STEM pipeline for teachers. So 3 of them are now Lowell Public School teachers. They worked as interns with me for, you know, 3 or 4 years, helping out with teachers. And Craig developed his own workshop with the 3D design. Erin is working in the carnival contraptions, and Nick, who's a math teacher, is doing the video game design with the gentleman. So it's a nice way for the students to get to know our students, to know project-based learning, and to really get comfortable with what we're trying to do in Lowell. So we fed all the students. They had breakfast and lunch. We give them recess. And we know we're doing a good job, and we have to ask them to go for recess because they don't want to leave. They want to go back and finish their project. So we're hoping that we can always increase the number of students that participate. We went school to school this year, especially to the elementaries, to recruit the students. We had flyers. One of our challenges is to get the kids there is transportation and then maybe length of day. So we're looking at opportunities to see if we can make that happy medium for parents so that they can get their students there and find that transportation piece. Our last one is called Kinetic Sculpture. I'm sure you've heard about the Kinetic Sculpture race in Lowell. So the principal, Jason McCreven at the STEM school, wanted to have a kinetic sculpture in the race. So we did that as part of Idea Camp. So what started, as you can see, a kiddie pool on the top left, a couple of old bikes from the Lowell Police Department, some bungee cords. The kids met in May, said they wanted to do something that had a cheeseburger focus. So with that as the plan, they went ahead and they worked really hard. And this is what the vehicle will look like. Now, if you know, it has to go over cobblestone streets, it has to go through the mud at the Songus Arena, and it has to do a sloosh in the Merrimack River. So it had to float, it had to move, and it has to be human-powered. So the kids did a great job in just 5 days to bring that to life. So I'll give you a little, oh, can I get it? There we go. During Folk Festival, the director of the Kinetic Sculpture actually came and picked that up on a U-Haul so they could bring it as a display for the Kinetic Sculpture as an advertisement. So we hope we'll see you all there on the 23rd, cheering on the STEM School Cheeseburger in Paradise. All set? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marty.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm a big fan of the Kinetic Sculpture Race, and there'll be twice as many entrants this year as last year, so I'll be there and I'll be rooting for this. Absolutely. Good luck. Next, we have the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of Wednesday, August 16th, 2017 for acceptance and approval of the minutes of the special meeting of the Lowell School Committee of Monday, August 21st, 2017 for acceptance. We have a motion to accept and place on file by Mr. Hoey, second by Ms. Martin. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under permission to enter, we have permission to enter. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Gignac, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, under memorials, we have a memorial for Isabel Rocher, Lowell High School student, and for Raymond Chandonnet, father of Melanie Chandonnet, Diane Chandonnet, and Paul Peters, and for Ernie Dakota, Lowell High School teacher, and for Marguerite Langtang Foley, a retired Riley School teacher, mother of Kristen Foley, mother of Michael Foley, sister of Lisa Kloboker, mother-in-law of Amanda Bailey Foley, and mother-in-law of Matt Shepard, a LeBlanc school paraprofessional, and the aunt of Maggie Kolblanka, a retired school teacher. excuse me, we have also William Malaya, father of Billy Ian Casey, special education, and grandfather of Colleen Anselin, and of Michael Casey of the Merkland School custodian, and Dave Casey, a Lowell High School teacher, and for Mary McNeil, mother of Catherine McNeil, special education teacher at the Memorial School, and for Madeline Reynolds, mother of Nancy Reynolds, of the Pine School teacher, and Martha Reynolds, a Moody School teacher. Next, under subcommittees, we have the Finance Committee. The chair would entertain a motion to accept a report of the Finance Committee, which I believe has already been given as a report of progress. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I just skipped a page. Motion by Ms. Martin, request the administration to provide an update from Koppelman and Page on the status of the Lowell High School Committee's request to receive a declaratory judgment regarding the responsibility of the committee in choosing the location of the Lowell High School project. Second by Ms. Doherty. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. It's my understanding that we'll be getting an update. It's required for during executive session at the conclusion of this meeting. So if that's where it needs to be, that's fine. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next is a motion by Ms. Martin, request that the mayor provide the committee with the plans for completing the annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools in accordance with the DESE requirements. Second by Ms. Doherty. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. I know that you had taken the lead on this last year, Mr. Mayor, so I just wanted to check in and see where we are with that process. I'm not sure what the deadline is from DESE. Perhaps I'm sure the superintendent can tell us that, just so we know what we should be shooting for.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll get something out to you by the first of the week. Is that okay? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next is a motion by Ms. Martin, request that the administration provide an update of the completion of all required annual evaluations of teaching and administrative leadership staff in accordance with DESE requirements. Second by Ms. Doherty. Ms. Martin.
Thank you again. This is just a requirement by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that all teaching and administrative staff need to be evaluated every year. So if we could just get an update on the status of that, and again, the deadline, just because I don't know when that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next is a motion by Mr. Gignac. Request that the superintendent provide a report on the class sizes district-wide for our next regular meeting. Second by Mr. Hoey. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the motion is pretty clear. I apologize if it's going to be difficult to put together for the next meeting, but I think it's a timely issue. I received some calls over the past week and a half from different schools on some class sizes, and the disparity is pretty shocking. I mean, I heard that there are some middle school classes at 35 students, which is very high, and then I heard of some middle schools with low 20s, which is where my assumption was they were supposed to be. I understand it's the beginning of the year. It's going to level out a little bit, but did you have something to say?
Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, I do. Thank you. There are no schools with 35 students. We actually come very timely. Your motion is really timely because today in the presentation of the dashboard, one of the items that we are releasing to the public where they can go and look at for themselves is the class sizes. So you can, I understand we are able to get online on that computer, and we will be able to see some of that.
We can pull that up tonight?
Yeah, we can pull up tonight. Of course, you could, once we release it here, anybody can pull it up from their home, and we're releasing some of the variables, as we will explain later, some of the parameters and stats slowly, but some of them will be released tonight, and one of them is the class size, and anyone can verify that these are pulled right off our X2, which is the registered student there is no class at 35 in the middle schools. But if anybody is reporting that to you, I would encourage that they call me and tell me what it is, because my stats and my principals are not telling us that at all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Gignac? Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next is a motion by Mr. Hoey. Request that the superintendent provide monthly reports on all overtime payments made to employees of the Lowell Public Schools. The report should include any payments made to employees outside of their annual salary. Seconded by Mr. Gignac. Mr. Hoey.
Thank you. I was listening to Tom Belgard, I think it was the last meeting the city council had, and he said the only responsibilities that the school department has is to cut the grass and maintain all the bushes around their schools. So when I heard him say that, I live right behind the Pine School, and I've watched a lot of vehicles doing a lot of overtime all summer long, lands and building, and I imagine we have a lot of overtime because we had to fix so many different schools, the Rogers School, the new school in Methuen. I know we had a lot of work. But I think when I get a good report on how much overtime is spent by us, maybe Gary can add something what the city's also charging us for the lands and buildings. But as far as the grass goes, I think it's been an issue for years, and it seems like they wait to the last minute. And then I know how much you got to do inside, but to me, I think we have to address it. If it's the only issue that the school department is supposed to do, I think we should have mulch. I think it should look good all year long. That's why I came up with this motion. I think it will help my colleagues see how much we're spending on overtime. Maybe we have to figure out a plan on how to get it done. So thank you very much.
Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this motion, I think, came up a few years ago, and there's a report that exists that the school committee used to receive monthly. It actually still is listed on the top of the quarterly report on motions as a regular report. So it does exist, so probably pretty simple to pull. But I think it's good to get a little refresher on how much we're spending in overtime. But what interested me most about this motion is any payments made to employees outside of the annual salary. So not necessarily overtime, but for salaried employees, stipends as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I think this motion is, I think it's a good motion. I think it's come up before, and I think curb appeal is important, and that's kind of what you're talking about is curb appeal of the schools. The schools have to look good on the outside if you want people to have confidence of what's going on the inside. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Ms. Doherty. Request that the superintendent provide the committee with the first day of school report that encompasses student transportation, school assignments, parent communication, and other areas relevant to the start of a new school year. Second by Ms. Martin. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I think the motion pretty much speaks for itself. I wanted to be clear about obviously the transportation issue, because we had so many changes at the last minute. We didn't have anyone in that role, just to make sure that all went smoothly. But also under the parent communication piece, it's my understanding that we used to do curriculum brochures, where we did them for the elementary, middle school, and my colleagues might remember that. I don't think we at least in terms of the website, there isn't an updated one since the fall of 2016. We used to do trimester. So I'd like the report to include, are we still doing that? And if not, why not? And the other thing is the curriculum maps we used to do, which would, that also I don't think has been updated. But it's information that enables parents to see, with the curriculum map, these are the standards that all the schools are covering at this point in the school year for this grade, et cetera. So I'm just looking to make sure we're still doing that as part of the first day of school report. We could include that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think included in this motion regarding the transportation, I'd be interested to hear about the transportation for after-school activities from the high school. I heard there was some issues with the transportation to Colley Stadium for the athletes out there. So if we could just get a report on that. I know there's some a lot of changes at the high school, and there's changes in the transportation office, so I'm sure it will all work out, but I think that's also important.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next is subcommittee reports. And the first is the Finance Subcommittee report, which I believe has already been reported on, so Chair would entertain a motion to accept that as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion? Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. Just based on the, for that Finance Subcommittee, we were expecting some additional information to be provided to us. Do we have a sense of when that will happen?
Yes, we did provide answers to questions that was presented August 16th in the packet, but you asked additional information, and so that should be provided by the next school committee meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? Ms. Doherty.
I just want for clarification, so those places in the report where it says using the offsets, you know, the answer was it will provide that number at the next school committee meeting. That wasn't this meeting you were referring to. You're referring to the next one in September? Because there were a couple of points about the offsets in particular that I was interested in.
Are you
Offsets.
are you referring to the offsets of the grants?
Yeah.
Well, it's on page 3
Let me get there, please.
of the report. There's a couple of items about offsets,
The health insurance,
right? And the
Oh, you mean the offsets on the food service revolving
Right.
account?
And the
Or health.
contracted transportation line, there was a surplus of 43,000. Mr. Fish will provide that information at the next school committee meeting. So everywhere we see that next school committee meeting, you're referring to the meeting in the middle of September.
I answered a lot of those questions on August 16th as part of there was a report to the school committee, and then the additional information that was requested in this finance subcommittee, they were included in that report. I will send that report out again. In addition, Ms. Martin asked additional information, so I'll have the additional information. I think she asked about the budget transfers, and there was some, she wanted an explanation on the large budget transfers. That will be next school committee meeting. But most of these questions that were referred into this minutes here were answered on August 16th.
Okay. I'm all set,
All
thank
set.
you.
Any further discussion, Ms. Martin?
I'd just like to add to that list, because, and you can refresh my memory if you did report back on this, but you were going to be providing us with the language regarding the best practice that would allow you to separate people from their benefits, where you paid down benefits using Chapter 70 funds as opposed to Title I funds, so you were going to provide us with the actual language that allows you to do that, not the years of the contract, because I know we've already talked about that, but the documentation in terms of accounting principles that allows you to do that. So that's one thing that I'm particularly interested in.
Sure.
I don't believe it was answered in the 16th. I don't recall getting those answers, so,
Not to that particular.
okay, so that's one particular one that I'm particularly interested in. Thank you.
Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to accept this as a report of progress. Is anybody interested in delaying this until the next meeting? If not, then Ms. Martin? Okay. All in favor of accepting this as a report of progress? All opposed, so voted. Next is the Lowell High Subcommittee for report and approval of the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, August 16th. Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lowell High School Subcommittee met on the 16th of August. Present were myself, Mr. Dakota, and Mr. Hoey. The entire Lowell Public Schools administration, as well as Superintendent of Police William Taylor and Sergeant Dave Peasley, who oversees the School Resource Officer Program. We had 2 items on the agenda, both of which were results of motions by Mr. Hoey. The first was a request a report from the superintendent regarding the total cost of security and safety in our schools, including the amount we spend on SROs, security and security equipment. Mr. Frisch provided an outline of how much we spend on security, school resource officers and the like. That report indicated about $1.3 million. Mr. Hoey made numerous comments about feeling that we should be investing more in that area. We also had another motion by Mr. Hoey to request the superintendent report, put together a meeting on safety and security with Deputy Superintendent Durkin and the Chief of Police. During that discussion, we discussed a number of things going on with our SROs in the Lowell Public Schools. One being the issue during the budget process of taking 3 SROs out of our budget and putting them onto the city's budget. And the chief and Deputy Durkin were pleased to announce that we are maintaining the same number of SROs in our school system. They're also looking at different grant opportunities to expand personnel and increase professional development to the SRO programs, as well as our safety and security staff, particularly at the high school and some of our smaller alternative schools. The Chief of Police indicated that our SRO program is a model and has received some accommodations nationwide. Deputy Durkin mentioned that we're investigating all sorts of professional development opportunities to collaborate between the school resource officers and our leaders in the district, and also developing classroom lesson plans for our elementary, middle school, and high school students to be put together by the SROs to intervene with the children and talk about specific disciplinary infractions. We talked about the long history of the SRO program, and there was a speaker from the public, as well as comments from Mr. Hoey that we should be increasing the number of SROs that we have. And I think the Deputy Superintendent and Chief of Police indicated they're looking to do that through some grant monies. The rest of the comments were really from Mr. Hoey. We did have the new head of school, Ms. Bastide, present, who indicated she will be taking the safety and security at the high school very seriously. And we did make a strong request that she ensures that the front door is locked at all times. So perhaps you can report on that if that's the case. But at that, we didn't make any motions as a result of the meeting, so I will submit that as report of progress. I'm not sure if Mr. Hoey or Mr. Dakota have any comments, but
Thank you, Mr. Dignac.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Mr. Hoey?
Nice job, by the way, describing that, but that meeting, I mean, all of yous worked pretty hard to do it. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to have the union people there, security from the high school, even children from the high school. We have 9 resource officers. You pay about $1.3 million on security for 28 schools. Out of those 9 SRO officers, 4 of them work at the high school. Now, I stood down near the high school a few times this week, and the student body's amazing. I know they're just great kids. It's an amazing school. My granddaughter's in it. I just feel when you got 28 schools and you only got 9 officers watching 28 schools, 4 of them at the high school. I've seen the Pine School last year a few times, no crossing guard, and they'll pull a policeman out of his cruiser, bring him down to do the crossing work at the Pine. Now, I've seen it done twice. I'm not sure if it goes like that around across the city. But $1.3 million in this world is not a lot of money to be paying on security. With that, Mayor, I think the City Council should hear that a little bit more. We have a big election coming up, but it's not about elections right now. It's about keeping all the children in Lowell safe. I have a history about police in our schools. I was here on the school committee about 21 years ago, and I didn't like DARE officers at that time. And I fought against DARE officers. I wanted a real policeman in front of every school with a real gun for anybody that's trying to come in and harm any one of our students. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse anymore. I appreciate the subcommittee. I thought your minutes and the way you spoke about it was unbelievable, thank you. But we all have to focus on it. School's back right now, and I hope everybody hears me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I have no issue with having security and security officers and SROs in our schools. What jumped out at me, what I have questions about, and I'm looking forward to get more information from the minutes of the report, was this discussion about professional development and training, and having our school resource officers and our security staff working together. And I'd like to know more about that, and I know it's just in the planning stages, but, you know, when you get something together, I'd be very interested to hear, you know, what we're doing around professional development for our security staff. The other thing that jumped out at me was that Superintendent Taylor, he's mentioned in the report that he would be speaking with officers, with the union, the police officers union, about giving the school department some say in who comes into our schools. And I love an update on that when you get anything back on that issue. That also is of interest to me. And then the last item, which the way it was addressed in the minutes, it was regarding, I believe Mr. Gignac had a question about the swipe cards, that we have swipe cards that are being issued, but the system's not activated. And I believe Mr. Frisch is mentioned here that he's going to be providing an update. I'd be very interested. I was not aware that we had swipe cards in a system that wasn't activated. So I'd be looking, do you have a sense of when we'd be getting that report, Mr. Frisch?
We've been working with the schools to compile the data, so we should be able to present something at the next school committee meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, the motion is to accept the report as a report of progress. Oh, we need a motion. Right? Motion by Mr. Gignac, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next subcommittee meeting is for the Joint Policy and Personnel Committee. And we have 3 motions to approve. Okay. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. So just reporting out on the meeting of the 21st, we did come into the meeting with 4 different topics to discuss. First was a motion I had placed at a previous meeting requesting for the administration to prepare a report for a joint meeting of the Personnel Subcommittee and Policy Subcommittee to review the use of screening committees during the hiring process and provide information on how their input serves as a factor in hiring discussions. We certainly had a fairly lengthy conversation about it. I think at the end of the day, and certainly based on the motion, we're really asking the administration to be able to provide us with a system that can really give us the information of how the screening committees experience their time serving in this volunteer capacity. There's certainly staff who are part of it, but there are also community members who are part of it. I think more than anything, this is not about one specific situation, which I know the superintendent had spoken of. It really is a larger conversation of ensuring that our screening committees are being used effectively, their input is being considered, and that we have an onus to prove that for ourselves in terms of accountability standards and whatnot. I'm hoping that the administration will be able to provide us with some kind of metric, whether it's through surveying or focus groups even, something that can give us some kind of insights as to what the participants in these screening committees experience and how they feel their input is regarded during the hiring process. So that was one motion that was made and approved during the subcommittee that needs to be brought forward to the group. We can put them all together if that's okay with you. Second was a discussion about the committee looking to get information on a more regular basis on any kind of situations of investigation, staff investigations, when issues come up. Again, we did talk about it for a fairly long period of time. Really, again, this is a situation where we understand there is a fine line. We need to be respectful on both sides of it. But Ms. Doherty did make a motion that was passed requesting a report from the city solicitor looking at how we can clarify the screen. Oh, I'm sorry, that was still on the screen committees. I apologize. I was talking actually about the personnel issues. So that motion, which is now 3 pages later, which should tell you something about the conversation. Requesting that we have an executive session to review any unfair labor practices that are we're currently working with, and to discuss any changes regarding personnel issues. That was seconded by me. And then our final motion of the meeting was just to push the budget reductions conversation to the full school committee meeting, which had already happened. So I would submit those 3 motions, one regarding the screening committee, one regarding the an executive session to get updated information on current investigations, and then the third is for the budget, moving the budget items.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Martin to approve the
Excuse
three...
me, Mayor.
Yes.
Was there one motion there I remember voting for, because this was a long meeting, to ask the city solicitor?
Yes,
Are
that
we-
was, yep, that was also on the screening committees.
All right, so that motion there, can we take that separately? Because I made a vote on that I don't want to make tonight, because I don't want to ask the city solicitor. I actually want to ask our own lawyer, maybe our labor lawyer. I'd rather have information from him right now.
Okay. Then why don't we take each of the 3 motions separately then?
Okay,
Is that
if you don't
okay?
mind.
Just so that there's no confusion. The first motion is to request a recommendation from the administration to gather information from our screening committee for feedback about the process. That's a motion by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Doherty. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. The next motion is to get a report from the city solicitor in response to looking at a clarification around the screening committee and the roles of the screening committee and how their input is a factor in hiring. That's a motion by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Doherty. Discussion? Mr. Hoey.
I just think we shouldn't be asking the city solicitor for information right now. I think we need our own lawyer to answer questions like that, so I just want to vote no on that, that's all.
Okay. What if we were to amend the motion? Would you have objection to amending the motion to have it be the city's attorney for the labor attorney? Does that make a difference?
Sorry, I'd only ask the question that our attorney, our labor attorney is, works with us on, on negotiations and then on any grievances, in terms of our union relationships. I don't know if hiring policies fall within that purview.
Okay.
So I don't know
I-
if he can.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you. I do agree with Mr. Hoey, because when we have issues and we have any difficulties in hiring or anything, we usually go to our labor attorney. 90% or almost thereabout of our employees for whom we are forming any kind of screening committee are all union members. So our first person we go to, if there is any difficulty or anything we want, we go to our labor attorney. That's the person we go to. We do not involve city solicitor in these issues at all. And my second point on this one is I don't think that city solicitor has any particular expertise in search committees. There is no section in the law that regulates search committees. There are none. There are no requirements in the law of search committees. I think it's more an issue of best practice, so that what we do in hiring is that we obey our contractual obligations with our unions and obey state law. And those our first go-to person is our labor attorney.
Ms. Martin, it's your motion, so that was just a suggestion on my part. It's up to you.
It's fine. I think if we could maybe start as a starting point, pulling the policies, which is where I had pulled my information from, which cited state law, which describes screening committees and how their input was meant to be used. So that would be a great starting point, right from our direct policy documents. Thank you.
Okay, so we have an amendment to this motion, that instead of the city solicitor, it will be Mr. Hall. Right? Okay. Second by Mr. Hoey. On the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed? So voted. The motion is amended. Discussion on the motion is amended. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. And the third motion is to plan to have an executive session to review the unfair labor practices that we are currently working with, and maybe at that meeting, we could discuss changes regarding personnel issues. That's a motion by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted?
I oppose.
Okay, so you probably didn't want to second the motion then, right?
Well, I'll second any motion Connie puts out or anybody else. They second my motions, you know? For
Okay.
discussion reasons only, I should say maybe, but I oppose that.
Okay, roll call.
Just have to add one thing.
Yes.
If we could get a date for that, so we can start polling tomorrow to get that scheduled? Great, thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
No,
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes?
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent, approved.
So the chair would now entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress. Do we have a motion to that effect by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Hoey? Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we go to our reports of the superintendent. And there are several, and the first one is for the Lowell Public Schools Comprehensive Leadership Development Program for 2017 and 2018. Is there any discussion on that item? Ms. Doherty?
Your Honor, there's several reports that have to do with our leadership development program. I would really love to hear just kind of a summary of each of them. I don't want to belabor it, but I think it's very important. It's a series of very important initiatives, and I think it's important to, hear a summary about what they're doing.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Superintendent?
Sure, thank you. I will ask Assistant Superintendent Robin Desmond to present that item. Thank you.
Thank you. So this year, we decided to really target the unique needs of all of our leaders because we have had a lot of transition. We have several leaders that are in place in buildings that have been here for a significant amount of time, and we have new leaders. So what we opted to do was have a focus on teaching and learning this year and provide coursework through Research for Better Teaching during our monthly leadership meetings, so that all of our administrators are using the same terminology and using the same vocabulary around teaching, learning, and coaching in our buildings. We also are offering to our new leaders, building leaders, a pretty comprehensive mentoring program. So we have existing building leaders that have had extensive success in our districts, mentoring our new leaders. And in the report, you'll see that there is a pretty strict protocol for mentoring, which is actually the protocol that's recommended by the Department of Ed for us to follow as far as mentoring new leaders. So we are implementing all of those components this year to mentor our new leaders as well.
Ms. Doherty?
I had a question. When you look at the calendar, you can see that they're going to be spending, many of these leaders are principals, they're going to be spending quite a bit of time, I think it's a day, a full day, a month, right? And I'm just wondering how you are going to assess the value of that time and what part of that is going to be collaborative, principals just sharing best practices. Is that built into the program, that there will be time for discussion as opposed to lectures or,
Right, so the program is comprehensive in the sense that there's multiple components. So there is some components that are tied to literature and research, and then there's some components around sharing what's happening within buildings and sharing vertically across the group. And then there's also going to be components where practices will, there'll be assignment practices that will go back to the building level, and then at the next meeting, a review of those practices will be a part of the next class, essentially. There's also a component of this program where Research for Better Teaching will actually go out to each building administrator in the field and really look at what the professional plan is for the leader of that particular building, and then support them in their unique needs for improving their practice as well.
Will there be some sort of a survey or
Yes.
afterwards?
Yes, at the end of the course, there will be a survey. And then the mentoring program for our new leaders has several components, one of which is that our new leaders met with myself in the curriculum office over the summer. We did a lot of pre-planning for building start at the end of August around curriculum, around entrance of new students and figuring out logistics around how schools function. And then we paired, again, our new leaders with veteran leaders within our district, and they met several times before the school year started, and then they will meet monthly, either in the building of the new leader or perhaps going out to another building to see examples of some things that our new leaders might be interested in seeing happening in our district as exemplars. And then there's also a collaboration with UMass Lowell in the School Leadership Institute that our new administrators will be participating in, which will focus on the teacher evaluation process.
If I could just indulge with one final question. I'm wondering, with all of this, is there a piece that has to do with parent and family engagement? Because I think that it really does start it starts at the very top, but it's reinforced so importantly, or not reinforced, at the building leadership level. So if you could just speak to that
So
piece.
within the coursework that we're doing with Research for Better Teaching, there is a big component of communication to staff and communication to families and outside organizations as well. And again, the implementation of the practice that's learned within the course will be assigned and then brought back for discussion at the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Is there any further discussion on any of these? If not, we'll move on to the to item 9.2, which is the data dashboard. Any discussion on that?
Yes.
And Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the voice. I'm getting a cold in September. As you recall, when we had talked a little bit before about this, that we were going to be working on a dashboard that will be both a two-phase dashboard, if you want. One would have a public-facing, where anybody can go to the web and get information about various parameters, various school sizes we were talking about earlier, AMCAS results or anything like that. Lots of that information might be coming from state, might be coming from federal, might be coming from the classroom, from our own databases, and we were going to come up with what we refer to as a data dashboard, so that it can be all there where a person can do searches along certain parameters. So that's the public-facing piece of it. The other side of it is for our principals and leaders and teachers, eventually when we get to that stage, to be able to do drill downs to the student level, not just the aggregate level, given certain access privileges. So we have now started releasing that, and we're using a software referred to as Tableau, which has been used in the past within the Lowell Public Schools, I think, for a few years now, 3-4 years. And and we are aligning that with the strategic plan. Each of the goals and the pillars, we refer to them, in the strategic plan has to have certain key performance indicators. And these are not the only ones, these are the key ones, but there are other performance indicators that will be brought on later on. So this isn't the end of it. This isn't the complete package. This is just the initial rollout. As we go, we're making more and more certain parameters, certain measures will get updated eventually daily as we link them to our live systems, such as the attendance. Attendance will be updated daily. Certain other measures might be updated once a year, such as the MCAS or something like that. So again, this is just the initial part. There's a lot more to be launched, but we thought it's we have sufficient information to start launching it, and we have sufficient information in the works that we're working on as is going to come live as we go additionally. So I'm going to ask Mr. Schlickman to give us a little presentation of what we have so far. And the part that we're looking and presenting to you right now is the public-facing part. And obviously, to you and to anybody who's listening and get a chance to go through that website to look at it. Any feedback you have, please send them over. We're not an expert. We're not experts in this area. You know, you're going to be the users. Parents are going to be the users. So we welcome any feedback, particularly from parents who say, well, I would really like it to add this and this and this information about the schools or children. We'd be more than happy to do that. Thank you. On that note, I will ask Mr. Schlickman to start his presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the school committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. I think what we're trying to do here is package data for both fun and understanding. In part, this is something that folks are going to be able to play with and think about, and hopefully that we're going to be able to do it in a way which will increase our understanding. So the issue is we've got plenty of data hanging around the district, but can we find it and use it? I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands of assessment records in X2. We've got 10 years worth of data since we switched over. It's more than 10 years now, 12 years since we swapped into the system. And a lot of other data sources around the district. The issue is not do we have the data, but how do we get it in the hands of people who can think about it. And a couple of years ago, I was at a meeting with my counterpart in Providence, who said he was using Tableau software, which is primarily a business tool to package and distribute data within the district. So what they did was they bought one license for each school, and rather than parceling out student data in 35 packages, they put it into one device, and you could just set the permissions so that automatically as you go along, you can see who's your own data and not go through other data. So we preserve confidentiality issues on students. So Providence was using it to package the data. It sits in the cloud, and it can be refreshed regularly. And they said, here, you can have anything you want. So we took their visualization, which is what they're formally called. Slang term for this is a viz file for student attendance. They said, you can have a good time. The challenge, though, was getting it to work for us. And the viz is a wonderful thing. It highlights students with chronic and severely chronic attendance patterns. So this is a display that a principal would see in their building, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and year average. And it's giving you the percentage of attendance, and if you're in the chronic or severely chronic categories, it'll come up as orange or red, so it makes it very apparent from a quick look as to who you need to be concentrating on. Now, the other thing about the viz, it also displays trends. You can make bar graphs, line graphs that show overall trends. And we have 2 years worth of attendance data that shows us, among other things, that February is a cold month, and that's probably our worst month for attendance. So with a small consultancy contract, we got a group, BKL School Vision, which is a 2-person shop, to help us hook the Providence attendance viz into X2 Aspen and get it up and running for us. Now, we had a limited number of site licenses, so it basically sat in Central as something we were trying out to see if we wanted to go out further. And it was a success. It worked well. So our next step was to move Tableau from central office into the schools. So this year we bought one Tableau license for each school. And on August 18th, not only did we give the principals the attendance viz, but we gave them some others as well. For example, one of the hard things to get out of X2 is elementary report card data. just by the nature of the way we're doing the rubrics. It's difficult to look at, so we dumped it into a file, pulled it through Tableau, and developed a report that goes to classroom trends in individual students. We also took our iReady data for ELA and math scores from last year and packaged them so receiving schools can see them. We took the Fontes and Pinnell instructional benchmark history going back to 2013 and have a roster for students showing their trends as well as the most recent testing. We're taking the WIDA and access scores for English language learners, state testing in our testing is when kids come into the district to determine their English language level, and packaged that and sent that out. And also a file of 4 years worth of suspension history. And once we've done that, taking Tableau and using it to drill down to individual students where schools can use it, we've sort of made a U-turn, and we're now working on creating a data dashboard to support the Lowell strategic plan. So the people who were involved with this pretty intensely over the past few weeks, myself and Paul Waddell on the analytics side, Casey Nelson and James Fitzmeyer on technology, and our consultant from BKL was helping us along the rough spots, Elaine Brown-Keller, who's a former school committee member from Littleton. And this is what the dashboard looks like. And it is now live. It went live a couple of hours ago. And it'll be at dashboard.lowell.k12.ma.us. And I want to issue some caveats. I mean, consider it like a restaurant that's doing a soft opening. We're not doing the grand opening yet. This is a soft opening. There are many reasons for that. First of all, MCAS is embargoed until October 24th, so we can't play there. A lot of the stuff that we're working on are trends within a school year. For example, if we're talking about chronic absence, if we're talking about how many students have were absent 10% of the days and we're 8 days into the school year, obviously one absence is going to trigger the alert, and that's not realistic to put out. So trends such as that we're not going to get out until October or November. And we're putting in student data that is preliminary, and there's some cleansing that goes on. We don't have things entirely right now. Class sizes are what's in X2. Some of the special ed students and some of the elementary grades aren't perfectly scheduled at this point, but we have to get it clean by October 1. So we're in sort of a preliminary data period where we're refreshing things. And the other thing is that we got it up and running, and we're doing a lot of the stuff manually. We're manually feeding in school schedules and class enrollment, and so that we don't have the network connections. And we wanted to get it live so you saw it, we saw it, the community saw it, and then we could go and use this as the platform for taking the next step of saying, okay, how do we go and network this so it runs automatically? And that is the web address. And if I can just get out of here, here we are live, and it's going to be a little difficult to see just because we're on TV. Assume that the folks at home will probably have a better view than we do right now. But as soon as you get to a computer and start to play, we have the 5 pillars. And a couple of things I want to call your attention to. Pillar 2, and I can't even see it, so I'm not going to get into much of a conversation. We're talking about, let's see, that's dropout rates, chronic attendance, out-of-school suspensions. We're concerned about diversity of our teaching staff and our professional staff. And Boston has this viz. And one of the ways I learned how to play with Tableau is that I said, okay, if Boston can do this, so can we. How do we do this? And sort of my own lessons and learning over about a month of time last year was figuring out how to do this one. And for Mr. Gignac, and also for myself, as a school committee member, this issue of class sizes is one I've got to say that I'm always concerned about. And this is the report I made that I'd want to have in Arlington. And one of the nice things is you can go and just click on the buttons and restrict it to one school. It's hard for me to do this from here, really. And there we go. You can go by grade, you can go by school. You can use the buttons to the side to drill down for anything you'd like to focus in on. We have a bunch of school finance things in here. And we have mapped out last March where every child who's attending the Lowell Public Schools lives. That was during the discussion of Lowell High siding, and because people had a lot of questions about the impacts of where kids lived and what the impact would be to transport. The other thing that the superintendent is very strong about, I think it's pillar 4, is wait list. And he really wants parents to be satisfied with the choice that they made in their schools and the schools that they're attending, and views the issue of the wait list as one that he wants to see resolved. He's been very passionate about that. So that became one of the key performance indicators to reduce this wait list. So we now display for you and the community how many people are on the wait list for each school at each grade level. And we do have a target, which is what a KPI is all about. The purple line is our baseline on September 1st. And the wait list, fortunately, has moved down a little so that there's been about 100 students removed from the wait list over the past, since September 1. But the best thing to do with this, now that you know where it is to go play and see what's there. We want the community and this committee to be well informed and thoughtful and share in discussions based on the facts that are out there. And I'm really proud to work in an administration that is committed to transparency in what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, for everybody else, just reminding you that this is just the beginning of it. We're only launching few variables, and we'll be launching more. There'll be variables coming in, almost every week. The initial ones will be those that are aligned with our strategic plan, but we're hoping to expand even those lists too. And once more, if you have any feedback, anything that you really like to see, once the data is there, we're very happy to oblige and present anything, really. It doesn't matter as long as the data is there. In addition to that, I will also mention that we're working on a second initiative that's going to come up real soon. We'll be coming actually to the school committee with a permission to enter to acquire that, because we need to acquire that service is a different service that will also add. And do you have an example of that?
We've got it linked at the bottom of the dashboard
It's a
page.
service that is called ClearGov, and ClearGov targets all the municipalities and school systems in Massachusetts, and we intend to try to become a member of that, because ClearGov will not only give you some really informative data about us, the schools, but also about our city, which becomes really important especially for potential new parents who are targeting Lowell as probably their destination. And it also brings transparency to anything from spending per students to various things. And right now, we asked them today, we're not a member yet. We're working on that. As I said, we'll bring you a permission to enter on the next school committee for that. But we asked them as a courtesy if they could open it up for us today, just so we can allow you and certain people to look at that. I think it's a fantastic service that will come in to complement that data that we have. And I think one of the strengths that software has is that if we allow them to also tap on our own databases, financial or otherwise, they can add those as well. And a lot of the questions that you've been having all these years about, can I have a report on that? Can I have a report on that? You will be able to get it right from there if we allow them to say, upload our financial data. So I think between the two, one addresses more the performance. Our data dashboard will address more the performance of school, the performance of district, but the other one addresses more the operational piece of it, the transparency, how much we spend on this and how much we spend on that, and you'll be able to pull all of those. So between the two of us, we're excited. I think by the end of this school year, we're going to have them more mature systems, and they will truly transform the way we do business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for making this live. I have a question. I'm looking at a middle school here, and I only see this data for science and social studies classes.
They're all in there. One of the filters may be
Okay.
engaged. If you see a place where it says multi-class, if it's null, it's a singleton class. What we've also done was grouped classes that are common. In other words, if you've got, say, Latin 3 and Latin 4 at the high school, we group them so you can see them so you know that there are actually two courses running at the same time with that combination of students.
Okay. And I didn't see any classes at 35, so that's good. I did see a 31, but 31 is a little high. But
No, on a serious note, I really want to address that. I talked to the principals, particularly of the middle schools, and what happens, and on their advice, a couple of the principals had asked us, if our cap is 30, can you please send me like 31, 32? And I said, why would you want to do that? And he says, well, because traditionally what has happened all these years is in the school system like that, when you have 6 classrooms, say, of the same, it's not uncommon that they would always lose 3, 4, 5 students before the October 20 deadline when we do all the more transfers. And it becomes really difficult for them and very challenging to wait until after October 20 to get new teachers, because they just found out that 4 of their regular students are not coming back, and they never told anybody. So now all of a sudden we have 4 or 5 slots empty, and traditionally what Lowell Public School has done is wait until October 20 and then transfer students now from the waiting list to complete. They don't like that, because now they have to work with those students and work hard to try to bring them up to the rest of the class. So they would like to see one of the things that I think one of the principal had suggested was really smart. He said, why don't we just, now that we have the capability to look at the data, why don't we look at the trends? Look at the trends that we have, and if you see consistently we get, see, by October 12, we're losing 4 or 5 students. Why don't we try to make sure that we take the students now so we don't have to work with them extra on October 20 to bring them back on target. And at the same time, you're making the parents much happier if they know that kids are going to those schools on day 1 or first week instead of waiting until October 20. And on the last note on that, some of the people that we might have on a waiting list that are not with us, they're somewhere else. They've decided, we have some students who decide to go homeschooling because they did not get their school of choice. And they're on the waiting list, and and maybe by October 20, they get a chance to go to the school of their choice. So what we did by waiting to October 20 is we just lost the funding, because if we do not report them by October 1st, we just lose about $12,000 per kid. So that's what Mr. Schlickman was referring to when he said this is one of the things I'm absolutely passionate about is to change the way we do the waiting lists. Number one is to make them very, waiting lists that are very aggressive. Like if you know you have spots, why wait until October 20? Just let's work a little bit more aggressive, make parents happier, get the kids on board sooner, and let's not miss any funding that might come with students who are not currently registered with us. And I think all in all, we're going to be able to do it when you have the data like this available to you for quick decision making. And we're also going to be changing some of the waiting lists, because in the past, the waiting list, a parent comes in and registers for 3 preferred schools, but if none of them has a slot, they will end up having been on a waiting list, but only on one waiting list of their top choice. And a lot of the parents, even though they're told that, they don't really grasp it. They go home thinking, my kid is on 3 waiting lists, and they're not. So this is another thing that we're going to change, is we're going to make sure that there will be 3 waiting lists live from, starting this point forward, when we're going to validate the waiting lists and redo them. So we're hopefully, with this ability to look at this data very quickly, we'll be able to do all of that, and it becomes all transparent too, when people can see it right in their own home to check on those lists and so forth. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you. I think the data is great, and just going through here, I think there's a lot of information that we regularly ask for, so it's great to have it at our fingertips. I think the home page, with all due respect, Mrs. Superintendent, I don't think everybody's overly interested in your pillars. I think if they want to see the class size, they just want a quick link to look at class size. I think it's important to connect them, but it's tough to navigate. You have to go, what is excellence in teaching and learning going to give me? It's MCAS data. So maybe just a description of what is in those areas is just to make it easier for folks, because not everybody is tech savvy as you, Mr. Schlickman, but I'm also interested in the ClearGov, because I've seen other districts use that, and I think it's pretty good information to have easily accessible, not just for us, but for the public. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is a review of the bullying prevention and intervention plan. Any discussion on that? Ms. Doherty.
I just have a question. Has anything changed? Were there any significant changes on this report?
Nothing has
policy?
changed from this past school year to the 2017-18 school year. Mass General Law has not changed. Additionally, in preparation for our coordinated program review that will be taking place April 2018, we submitted all of our materials to the state in May, this past May, and one of the pieces that we reviewed substantially was a bullying plan, along with all the data for the schools. So I feel confident that our plan aligns with the state and the requirements that we have for students reporting. Additionally, at the start of the school year, we train all of our principals, assistant principals, and district leaders on the plan. We also provide them with all the materials that they need to provide their staff with the training during orientation on day 1. And we also are required by law to have some curriculum in place at all of our schools. So I thank our staff council for this, for reviewing the plans and looking at the data and submitting this for your review.
To accept the report, the report of
We'll do
progress.
that after we get through the list, if that's okay. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to summer construction report. Any discussion? Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Underwood, for putting this together. Just a few questions. First off, thank you and your staff for doing all of this over the summer and getting us ready for the opening of school. I have a question regarding, it doesn't look like there was any HVAC work.
There was some HVC, well, there's some in the works. We have that $425,000 that was allocated. Some of those projects will start before the start of the cold weather. We're looking at October. But the bid has gone out, the vendors have been hired, and they're just waiting to start them now.
Okay, well, that's good news. Question for you regarding the roof repair at the high school. That isn't the brand-new roof, right?
No, it's not. Those are just minor repairs that we had to do just to keep the thing from stop leaking right now.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say there was no leaks over this last heavy rain we had today.
Okay. And there was some work done at the Abbassia Adult Ed Center, wasn't there?
There was, but it wasn't part of anything that I had put together there. They had done some wall replacement over there. It wasn't put on this. There was other things done other than this list. What we did is we listed what we thought were the 10 major projects that went on. There was also some other preventative maintenance and repairs done at the various schools and,
Okay.
and buildings.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? We are doing a brand-new roof in the 1922 building. It cost $1.2 million. Just for everybody's information. No further discussion on this. We'll move on to the Title I and Title IIA. Any discussion? If not, we'll move on to the Food Service Annual Report. Ms. Martin.
Just asking on the Title I. So looking at the, and I know you included a number of different pieces of information on this one. The Title I, Title IIA, and what's that, Title V, allocation and costs for 2018, is that that's the title I'm showing on this form? So as we're looking at the full FY18 expenditures that we're going to be looking at, am I reading this right, that we're looking at 5.6 and change million?
Yeah, yes. We talked about previously that we were losing about $500,000 from Title I, Title II.
Right.
We combined, put all the positions under Title I because we had a carryover of 1.2 million, or 1.1 million out of Title I and 72,000 and change out of Title II.
Mm-hmm.
For FY18, we will be able to fund all positions that were budgeted under these grants. However, we will need to plan in FY19 how to pay for these positions. This is simply a report of progress, and we will provide an updates as additional information is obtained. I do want to answer your question from previous about how to, the reason why we can defer monies from FY17 into FY18. There's a difference between the two fiscal years between the federal government and the school state of Massachusetts. We're on a fiscal year that ends June 30th, 2017. The feds are on August 31st, 17. So that lag allows us to defer payments into, let's say, July of 31st. That would be in FY18 at our books, but still FY17 on the grants books.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we are able to defer offsets from FY17 to FY18. However, this year, because we knew that the grants were being cut, we didn't provide the offsets to FY17, as you know, and we used the offsets as carryover to provide the funding for the budgeted positions. So to answer your question, we were able to defer money out of FY17 into the carryover, which then provided for maintaining for 1 year our staff positions that were budgeted. FY19, of course, we're going to have to roll up our sleeves. We're going to be looking at about 1 to 1.2 million of reductions in grant expenditures. Some we can move to local funds, but then the local funds will then, we'll have to look carefully, can we fit all the positions into our local funds? So this year is good, and then next year we're going to have a challenge.
Thank you very much. And in terms of our inability to be able to save anything in this year, it's also going to be impacted, correct, that the grant, it's a 2-year grant, so it ends this current year. We wouldn't have that same flexibility regardless of the fiscal year in FY19. So we wouldn't be able to do that regardless.
FY19, right, we'll use the carryover, so we'll be using all our reserves just to pay for the reductions in the grants. So the grants are reduced by 1.1 million. Our carryover was 1.1 million, which is our reserves from our carryover from FY17.
So in looking at this report, can you pull out for me, I'm looking at all of the school-based funding for the Title I allocation, and then you get down to the bottom, and it's the district Title I and the district reservation.
Correct.
Could you tell me what those are?
The district reservation is reserving funds for professional development. So each school, we provide one coach, instructional support, instructional literacy coach, and also one social worker.
For each school?
For each school. And then the school allocations are for schools in high need, and high need is defined as a higher concentration of poverty for students coming from low-income backgrounds, as well as level 3 is a priority. So those two factors and those supplements are used to bring up the level of achievement in those schools at a level that are level 3.
And they're all primarily staff expenses at the school sites.
At the school sites, it's primarily, we have the positions, we've been placing those in primarily 2 areas, materials as well as tutors, and also parent liaisons as well.
So the coaches, social worker, teachers, parent liaisons,
Tutors.
I mean, I'd still include tutors as staffing. I mean,
Yeah.
they're specialized, obviously. And then the materials, so that's line 7.
Correct.
So out of the total, the
Yeah, that
school sites would
totals-
have about 180,000, 175,000 that they're spending on materials overall.
Yeah, the school allocations, correct. And 28,000 at the district, for a total of 194,000.
Okay.
Want to compliment our Title I director, Patty Kajenka, as well as Jackie Kelleher, Roy Kelleher. And both of them has worked extremely hard in providing the ability to maintain our staffing positions for FY18.
I'm just trying to understand how it breaks out. So with the district Title I, you've got the parent liaisons. Is that in addition to the, like, above that, you've got the school-based total, I'm assuming that 102,000? Line 3.
Correct.
And then you've got 136,000 from the district in parent liaisons?
Right.
So are those just the ones that are located at other schools that aren't listed above?
Correct. That's an additional money that we can provide more information on the exact placement of those.
And what's the differential? Why are some listed and some not? Like, why are some lumped together as district Title I and some broken out by school? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay,
school,
thanks, Bob.
good question. School-based allocations are based upon the high need, the high poverty, as I spoke to you before. District, there's flexibility in how we allocate those dollars. So in terms of, that is still yet to be decided, of exactly how that will be placed, but I can provide that information to the school committee as soon as we have that information. And yes.
Can I just ask on the same question? Thank you. So are the parent liaisons not in place presently that you would be using those funds for?
I'm going to have to check on that to exactly answer your question. Okay. I don't have that information in front. That's a good question.
Okay.
And so I'd like to get back to the Title I director and Jackie and then answer that question factually.
Okay.
Could we also include in that then the district reservation?
Yeah, the district reservation is the professional, the coaches. That's money.
So you can break that out by person?
Yeah, that's right. We can
So
break
I'm
that.
just asking if you could do it for both of
Sure.
those district line items?
Okay.
Both for the district Title I and the district reservation
Sure.
funds?
Okay.
So could I make that in the form of a motion?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we have a motion, second by Mr. Gignac. You wanted to state the motion?
No.
With Ms. Vaughn?
Could we get a budget, spending breakdown for the district-wide Title I funds, the headings District Title I and the heading District Reservation? Also a breakdown on the parent liaison hiring, what the status is on that, just to include Mr. Gignac's question as well. Thank you.
You can review that with Ms. Sheehan later on.
I'm gonna just have faith.
All right, second to the motion by Mr. Gignac. Discussion on the motion. Can I just ask one question? What was the answer to regarding line 3? And why are some of them included and some of them are not? Why is that?
Yeah, that's the, I'm going to have to get back to the school committee on that question.
You don't know the answer to that question right now.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question regarding the 136,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that carries through, right? If you go to line 6, it's the same thing. Right? There's some,
We have some I can provide the details for the school committee regarding the entire district Title I, where that money is being spent. So,
I'm not looking to do that right now. I'm just wondering why it seems to run across the spreadsheet like that, so that there's, but we'll get the answer at the next meeting, I'm assuming.
correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is food service, the food service annual report. Any discussion on the food service annual report? Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have an update on how the summer program went with the new vehicle?
Remind me.
Because I don't see that information here. Oh,
Right.
we can get that.
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay. I did notice here, I noticed a few things in this report. I noticed that last school year, some of the breakfast percentages were pretty low. In this school year, I've received reports that now a number of those schools are having breakfast in the classroom. How did that conversation come up with the principals? Because I haven't had great feedback on that. I heard more it was pushed on them, and it works at some schools and it doesn't work at some schools, and it is just an issue of cleanliness and I just know some teachers and some principals aren't overly pleased with that implementation of the program. So I'm just curious as to how that was rolled out. What schools are participating in breakfast in the classroom? What schools are maintaining breakfast in the cafeteria? But
Yes, you can for instance, the schools with the much lower percentages on breakfast,
yeah,
those are the schools that didn't have breakfast in the classroom.
that are now.
We have talked to each of the principals. A couple of the schools have new principals, such as the Robinson and the Sullivan. But we did talk to each principal, and we did get their okay to have breakfast in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we could just get I don't even need the information, but if you could just get a feel of how that's going, just reach out to them later on.
Sure.
I didn't hear from either of those schools. But another comment I'd like to make is I noticed at the Career Academy, the lunch percentage is extremely low. And that's a school where you would think they would need this more than anybody else. Do we have any idea why that's the case?
No, I can check into that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what, overall, the lunch percentage is pretty high, 81%.
Yeah, that one is at 45. That's why
That
it
one
was
is
just-
at 45, that's an anomaly, so we
Yeah,
can
that's why I
check
was-
into that.
That's why it stood out to me. But all in all, it looks like the program's working pretty well. But what would be helpful is to see the comparison from the year prior to last year, and then what the improvements are implemented this year, so we can compare what's working.
Yeah.
And I just, my concern with the breakfast in the classroom, other than the fact that it is a cleanliness issue and whatnot, is that I don't want to be forcing breakfast in the classroom simply so we can be reimbursed for providing breakfast. I know there's issues with waste that we talk about on regularly regarding the lunch. I hadn't heard the same issue with waste regarding breakfast, but now I'm starting to. So if we could just monitor this new implementation of breakfast in the classroom and see if it's working, what we can do to make it work efficiently, and that we're doing what's best for what the kids actually need, and that we're not just putting it in the classroom to get reimbursed for it.
Well, I can assure you that we have many, many schools with, that have successful breakfast programs in the classroom, and there's not an issue with cleanliness. And so the issue is why can't that happen at all of our schools?
Right, and which I completely understand. I think it can work. I think it's just having leaders share of what they did to make it work.
Right.
I think that's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because for some it's just brand new, and it's going to take some getting used to, but we have to do something to make sure it works everywhere.
Right.
And
It's
just,
about it's about providing access for students to have a nutritious breakfast so they can have the energy to carry them all day long to do their best in the school.
great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. Mr. Hoey.
Thanks, Mayor. When you said 45% at the Career Academy, I looked right up at the little blank score, that's up to 86. Maybe you gotta go to the Career Academy and find one of those bad meals, you know, what happened last year, because look at how their numbers are up. But you know, I've been down to the administration office plenty of times over the summer, just walking around, seeing all the work done. And we're gonna go in executive session shortly to talk about our clerks. But one thing that has been bothering me, and I didn't talk to you about it today, Mr. Superintendent, I wish I did. I didn't realize we're talking about food services here. But I seen we took the 3 clerks that probably worked the hardest out of all the clerks in the whole system, and we put them out in the hallway, and then we give Amarak a new suite. Amarak, those people get a new suite. So I'm just wondering if they might be paying a little bit of rent to have that, you know, because we gave them a nice big room, and we are paying $500,000 there. I'm just curious if they should be paying us rent, because they make a lot of money off us.
The answer to your question is yes, they are paying their rent.
Thank you. I'd like to see how much someday, if you don't mind.
11,000 in excess.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hoey. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Lowell High School collaboration with Mass Insight. Any discussion, Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, and I just want to say I'm very excited about this collaboration with Mass Insight. They are a nonprofit with a focus on education reform dedicated to closing the achievement gap for students of diverse backgrounds. And I believe, Mr. Frisch might know this, is it $20,000? Is that what it's costing us to collect? Okay, so for what we're getting out of that is a focus on 3 areas that I think are very important. Improve our AP instruction, increase the number and diversity of students who take AP classes, which are our highest level of classes that we offer at the high school. And then as part of that program, they're going to track the results for us, correct? So we're going to be able to see exactly what the return on investment is going to be. And part of it is that really mentoring the students and, you know, helping at both ends with the teachers and the quality of the instruction. And then I think we should see some, I'm looking forward to getting the results of what that effort is going to mean for Lowell High. So I'm excited about this opportunity. The superintendent wants to add something.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yeah, I just want to make a little clarification. Yes, it is true. We pay $20,000 the district chair. The way the program works is that districts are asked to pay a certain amount based on student number. Our share would have been a lot more than that. It was supposed to be like at least more than twice that, and thanks to Mrs. Desmond here, did a really good job negotiating it down to 20. But the program costs substantially more than that. The rest of the monies are paid by the state. So Mass Insight, on behalf of all the school committees, every year they submit for a grant from the states, and they're given several $1 million for that. And we usually support them in getting that grade. So they come to us to get our support letters, and then once successful, they get the money. So I just want to make sure that, to understand that this is not some cheap program of 20,000. There's a lot of money spent in there. It's just that the majority, the largest share of the funds spent come from the state.
Just follow up, I know you've had personal experience with, was it at Holyoke? Maybe you could just share what your experience with Mass Insight.
We had really good experience with the program when I was in Winchendon. They more than doubled our AP, both in participation as well as performance. They did a really good job.
And just so for people who might not know, if you take AP classes in high school and you pass the tests, many, depending on how high your score is, many schools, colleges will accept that in lieu of having to take that course. So it actually saves in your college expenses as well. And it's a very good plug for the high school. It's great.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the personnel report. Any discussion regarding the personnel report? Mr. Hoey.
Just, if I could address this, Mayor, to Mr. Frisch. The report from the Director of Human Services, like I said, all summer long, I've been staying focused on how many people we're going to have to hire. And I remember bringing a number up. It was 2,941 employees. And I think over the summer, I'm pretty sure we hired not just teachers, but just total staff, 219 members that we've hired. And I know they've worked real hard because I was watching the office the whole summer, like I said. But that number would total about 3,160 employees now. But I think I'm wrong because of retirees. But if you could just find out exactly how many employees we have, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Doherty, then Mr. Gignac.
Yes, I just wanted some clarification because at our August 16th meeting, we received a report on the number of outstanding positions that were still open at that time. We were trying to get ready for the school year and having a teacher in every classroom and all that. And during the discussion about that report, I'd asked for an update if there were, if we had any other open positions. So I'm assuming if you could just clarify for me, did we fill every position in time for the school year? Do you know that? We did. Because my other question is, at that meeting, the report on August 16th, we were told there were 19 outstanding openings for teaching positions. But this report, if you look at number 4, teachers hired from the list of available teachers, there's 29 new hires. So I'm just, math's not my strongest suit, but that's 10 more positions than we were told that we needed. So I don't know if you have any clarification on that, Mr. Fish, but that was just my question.
I don't have, I can get that clarification for you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed on the report that you have hired a Family Resource Center coordinator, which is great news. Since that position has changed a little bit, but it's going to be really the face of the school department, can you invite that individual to our next meeting? Just for
Absolutely.
an introduction. Great. And have we hired a transportation manager, or are we in the process?
We're in the process.
Okay. So soon, hopefully?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to the list of eligible teachers. Is there any discussion regarding the list of eligible teachers? Hearing no discussion, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the reports of the superintendent, items 9.1 through 9.9. Accept them and place on file by Mr. Hoey, second by Ms. Doherty. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is item 9.10, which is home education. Do we have a motion to approve home education? By Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, under new business, is the approval of an educational research request. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, Ms. Martin.
Can I ask, so looking at the materials, and working with Harvard, I think that's great. My question was, based on their interest in kind of turnaround schools, are they going to be focusing on, I'm assuming kind of the Merkland historically, but also the Green Elge now that's going through that same process?
I'm going to ask Mr. Schlickman to respond. He's been in contact with them.
They will be, in theory, focusing on any level 3 or level 4 schools, but their focus is on the actions of the Department of Education, not on us, so that the department is really doing this in an evaluative manner, looking to see what's working and for us. So this is more of a feedback opportunity for us to get our response to their efforts into this work.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have a budget transfer. Next is, we have a budget transfer in the amount of $25,500 from various schools to various other schools. Do we have a motion to approve the transfer by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Hoey? Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac? 6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have a vote to accept a grant award of $2,000 to the Bridge Program from the Smith Prudhomme Foundation. Do we have a motion approved by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Dakota? Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
6 yeas, approved.
Next, under convention conference request, we have one request. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
6 yeas, approved.
That concludes the agenda in open session. The chair would entertain a motion to go into executive session, and with the understanding that we would adjourn from the executive session. Do we have a motion to that effect by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Ms. Martin? Roll call.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac? 6 yeas, approved.